Mangwana di Malelepo Fukenjani Kleklas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, bringing you the latest news, business and current affairs from across the continent and beyond. From political developments in the DRC, the US's interest in African minerals and Uganda's fight against malaria, to the passing of South African literary giant Athol Fugard, we've got it all covered. Plus, as Zimbabwe marks 10 years since the disappearance of activist Zamara, calls for justice grow louder, and we'll also be getting a comprehensive full Zimbabwe report from talent Gore. This is Africa Good Morning. Find us on DSTV 285, GOTV 25, oneup2.com, and Network Media Hub on YouTube. Let's get into today's top stories. Let's get into our top stories. Officials from the Party of Democratic Republic of Congo's former President Joseph Kabila have been invited to appear before a military prosecutor in a sign of political tensions over Rwanda-backed rebels' advances in the east. The exact reason for the invitations was not clear, said Jean Buyu, a lawyer for the officials and former security advisor to Kabila. But President Felix Tshisekedi, who once formed an awkward power-sharing deal with Kabila, has recently accused him of sponsoring the M23 rebels who have seized East Congo's two biggest cities since January. Kabila has also reached out to opposition politicians and civil society members to discuss the country's political future amid criticism of Tshisekedi's response to the M23's military campaign. The military prosecutor's office sent about 10 invitation letters to members of Kabila's People's Party for Reconstruction and Democracy, and although only 3 people were expected to appear for questioning in the capital, Kinshasa, on Monday, Mbuyu said. They included Albin Minaku, vice president of the party and former president of the National Assembly, and Emmanuel Ramazani Shadari, a former interior minister and presidential candidate, Mbuyu also said. Staying with the DRC, the United States is open to exploring critical minerals partnerships with Congo, the State Department said in a statement to Reuters on Sunday after a Congolese senator contacted U.S. officials to pitch a minerals for security deal. Democratic Republic of Congo, which is rich in cobalt, lithium, and uranium, among other minerals, has been fighting Rwanda-backed M23 rebels who have seized swaths of its territory this year. Talk of a deal with the U.S., which is also in discussions with Ukraine over a minerals pact, has circulated in Kinshasa for weeks. The United States is open to discussing partnerships in this sector that are aligned with the Trump administration's America First agenda, a State Department spokesperson said, noting that Congo held a significant share of the world's critical minerals required for advanced technologies. The U.S. has worked to boost U.S. private sector investment in the DRC to develop mining resources in a responsible and transparent manner, the spokesperson said. Kinshasa has not publicly detailed a proposal, instead saying it is seeking diversified partnerships. There is a desire for us to diversify our partners, Congolese government spokesman Patrick Muyaya said last week, adding there were daily exchanges between Congo and the U.S. If today American investors are interested in coming to the DRC, obviously they will find space. DRC has reserves that are available, and it would also be good if American capital could invest here, he also said. Moving on to our next story. Malaria season kicks off this month across much of Africa. This disease remains the deadliest on the continent, particularly affecting children. The decision by the Trump administration to cut 90% of USAID's foreign aid contracts has raised alarms among health officials in Uganda, who warn of impending disaster in some of the poorest areas of the world. Dr. Jimmy Opigo, who oversees Uganda's malaria control program, informed the Associated Press that the stop work orders from USAID issued in late January have forced him and his team to concentrate on disaster preparedness. The U.S. is the leading bilateral supporter of anti-malaria initiatives initiatives in Africa. Opigo emphasized the importance of anti-malarial medications and insecticide-treated bed nets, stating they are essential as groceries. There needs to be a continuous supply, he remarked from Kampala. With the reduction in resources due to terminated contracts, he anticipates a surge in severe malaria cases later this year, which can lead to complications such as organ failure. While there is no definitive cure for the vaccines being distributed in parts of Africa are not perfect, but are expected to continue with backing from a global vaccine alliance. According to Malaria No More, a Washington-based organization, new projections indicate that just 1 year of disruption in the malaria control supply chain could result in nearly 50 million additional cases and 107,000 more deaths worldwide. The organization has called on the Trump administration to reinstate these critical programs before outbreaks escalate. In 2023, Africa's 1.5 billion population accounted for 95% of an estimated 597,000 malaria fatalities globally, as reported by the World Health Organization. We move on to our next story. Athol Fugard, who has died aged 92, was one of South Africa's greatest playwrights, renowned for his fearless depictions of apartheid's injustices. His breakthrough came with The Blood Knot in 1961, the first South African play with a black and white actor performing together before apartheid laws banned mixed casts. Despite having his passport confiscated, Fugard continued pushing boundaries, working with the Serpent Players, a black theater group, and staging performances in townships despite harassment from security forces. His acclaimed plays, including Bosman and Lena 1969, which explored the struggles of a mixed-race couple, and Sizwe Banzi is Dead and The Island, co-written with John Kani and Winston Nshona, powerfully condemned apartheid's brutality, particularly life on Robben Island where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned. Tsotsi, his novel, was later adapted into a film that won the 2006 Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film. Recognized globally, Fugard received numerous awards, including a Tony Award for Lifetime Achievement in 2011, while Time magazine once called him the greatest active English-speaking playwright. Reflecting on his work, he said, "Apartheid defined me, but I am proud of the work that came out of it." Rest in peace, Athol Fugard. And in the last of our top stories, ahead of the 10-year anniversary of enforced disappearance of Zimbabwean journalist and pro-democracy activist Itai Peace Dzamara, Amnesty International calls on authorities to urgently establish an independent, impartial and transparent investigation into his whereabouts. On the morning of 9 March 2015, 5 men abducted Dzamara from a barber shop in the capital Harare's Glenview suburb. The men accused him of stealing cattle before handcuffing him and driving off with him in a white truck with concealed number plates. All attempts by relatives and human rights lawyers to establish his whereabouts have been unsuccessful. Itai Dzamara's family and loved ones have endured 10 years without answers. The authorities have ignored calls for information and investigation, including from his wife, Shefra Dzamara, said Tigere Chaguta, Amnesty International's regional director for Eastern Southern Africa. Zimbabwean authorities must urgently carry out an effective investigation into what happened to Itai Dzamara and end their official silence on this case. Dzamara was a leader of the Occupy Africa Unity Square, a pro-democracy protest group. 2 days before his enforced disappearance, Dzamara addressed an opposition rally where he called for mass action against Zimbabwe's deteriorating economic conditions. Dzamara's enforced disappearance followed months of persecution after he submitted a petition calling on Zimbabwe's then President Robert Mugabe to resign and pave way for elections. We're going to be talking to talent Gore shortly as she gives us a more comprehensive update on Zimbabwe, but those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. Let's have a look at the weather. It's time for us to talk to talent Gore in Zimbabwe as she brings us the Zimbabwe Report, starting with current affairs. Talent Homkase.
Africa.
Africa, good morning. Now, Alpha Media Holdings journalist Blessed Mhlanga has filed an appeal at the High Court following last week's decision to deny him bail by a Harare magistrate.
Yes, Alpha Media Holdings journalist, and he's quite prominent within the political landscape in Zimbabwe, has filed an appeal at the High Court following last week's decision to deny him bail by a Harare magistrate. Apparently, Mhlanga was arrested last week for inciting violence, and in the application, the Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, which is representing the prominent journalist, said Magistrate Farai Gutima erred in denying him bail. The lawyers said that they have amplified their efforts to secure freedom from Mhlanga by filing an appeal at Harare High Court against the magistrate. In the appeal, Chris Mike, who's representing Blessed Mhlanga, argued that Magistrate Gutima grossly erred and misdirected himself in denying bail to Mhlanga late last month, as there were no compelling reasons to justify Mhlanga's continued incarceration. Mhlanga is being accused of inciting violence through broadcast of firebrand war veteran and nemesis to President Emmerson Mnangagwa Blessed Geza on the publication's broadcast unit HSTV. But Geza right now is in hiding, and yes, he was slamming President Emmerson Mnangagwa for corruption and poor leadership while demanding his exit from power. Mhlanga handed himself after the police announced in a statement that they were looking for him. So soon after handing himself over to the police, he was arrested, and right now he is in prison where he is being denied bail. So right now we're just waiting to hear what the High Court of Zimbabwe is going to say in regards to the appeal that has been made by the lawyers.
All right, talent, in a related update, the ruling ZANU-PF has expelled outspoken war veteran and Central Committee member Blessed Geza on charges of undermining President Emmerson Mnangagwa.
Yes, our war veteran Blessed Geza has been making waves, or rather noise, in Zimbabwe, and the ruling party ZANU-PF have expelled him from the party for undermining President Emmerson Mnangagwa. Addressing a press conference in Harare on Thursday, ZANU-PF Legal Affairs Secretary Patrick Chinamasa said Geza had undermined the party leadership after he called on President Emmerson Mnangagwa to step down. Chinamasa said that, "I think all of you are aware of the utterances by Comrade Geza, which sought to undermine the party leadership and over and above, which was an attack on the state machinery." The former ZANU-PF MP was fired alongside former youth leader Gifford Ugongwe, and Geza recently scoffed at threats to fire him, saying that none among the current leaders within the ZANU-PF had the power to expel him from a party he had founded. The call for Mnangagwa's resignation came at a time of intensifying divisions within ZANU-PF. So right now, Geza has been expelled from the party, but he hasn't said anything in connection to this recent development. So we're just hoping that he will come out and say something, because the citizens of Zimbabwe were actually hoping that since Geza said those things when he called President Emmerson Mnangagwa on corruption allegation and called him to step down, they were hoping that something was going to happen within the political landscape in Zimbabwe. But ever since Geza has been on the wanted list, he hasn't said anything. We haven't heard from him ever since then. So the citizens are just hoping that he will come out and say something to the citizens of Zimbabwe.
All right, let's continue with the sports news with talent Gore. Now, talent Zimbabwe national and Wolverhampton Wanderers player Marshall Munetsi was delighted to open his Wolves account, scoring this last weekend, the first Zimbabwean goal in the English Premier League since Benjani Morwar.
Yes, Marshall Munetsi was delighted to score his and he becomes the first Zimbabwean since Benjani Marwari in 2011 to score in an English Premier League game, helping to secure what could be a crucial point for Wolves in their battle against the drop. But even though he helped secure that goal and Wolves and Everton shared points, Munetsi was with mixed emotions after not being able to help the team fight for the win after being withdrawn at halftime. After feeling a slight knock, however, he insisted he will be fit to feature in another crucial battle against Southampton next weekend. On settling for a draw against Everton, Munetsi said that it was something that they were pushing for. Obviously, they were hoping to win, but having him helping the team made him feel a part of the team and very crucial within the Wolverhampton camp. So he's quite happy with that, and he's hoping that in the next game they're going to win and they're going to get all the 3 points.
All right, yeah, we're certainly proud of him, and we'll see what he'll do in AFCON, which starts on 21 December. Zimbabwe is grouped with Egypt, Angola, and South Africa. Now, staying with sport, sort of, a football jersey signed by Scotland FC, Scott with a double T, that's a Zimbabwean team, signed by those players, was auctioned for $250,000 at a recent event. Could you please tell us about that?
Yes, many people are still shocked that a football jersey was sold for 250,000 United States dollars. And to make matters worse, Scotland is a relatively new team and it has just been elevated into the Premier League, in Zimbabwe's Premier League. And people are saying that how can a mere jersey cost $250,000? To make matters worse, the Scotland FC Football Club is owned, or rather was founded by one of Zimbabwe's gold buyers and businessman, Scott Asakukanya, and the jersey was bought by a company which is owned by controversial businessman Wicknell Chivayo. So they bought that jersey for 250,000 United States dollars. If that wasn't all, some of the replica jerseys which were being sold at the events. There was an event in which the Scotland FC Football Club was unveiling its new sports kit, etc. So the jersey was actually bought for 250,000 United States dollars by Wicknell Chivai, who is quite a controversial figure within Zimbabwe. And many citizens are saying that that money could have been channeled elsewhere rather than being used on a soccer jersey. 250,000 could have bought medicines and it could have equipped hospitals in Zimbabwe, because most of the hospitals right now, they do not have medicines, they do not have day-to-day usages within hospitals. So that money could have been channeled towards hospitals or something else. But Wicknell Chivayo chose to use that money in buying a football jersey, of which Scotland FC is a football club which is owned by his friend. So it is quite controversial and people are still talking about it. This is the first time such a thing has happened in Zimbabwe. And I'm guessing in Africa, no one has actually bought a football jersey for 250,000 United States dollars. So this is something that has made waves, and shocking waves rather, in Zimbabwe right now.
All right, talent, we end with your arts and entertainment news. The National Arts Council of Zimbabwe is dangling some grants to short film makers as concisely as possible.
Yes, the 5-year film and television strategy blueprint launched last year by stakeholders has promised to give short filmmakers grants to help them within their space and to help them in creating content. So we are hoping that in the next coming years we're going to be seeing short filmmakers creating content that caters to Zimbabweans, and they are saying that the filmmakers themselves are saying that they are quite grateful for this grant, and they are hoping and they have high hopes that they will actually take the film industry in Zimbabwe to another level.
That was Talent Gore bringing us the comprehensive Zimbabwe report. Let's get into some economic news before the indicators. 5 years after the WHO's first described the COVID-19 coronavirus outbreak as a pandemic, its effects are still being felt on the global economy. COVID-19 and efforts to contain it triggered record government debt, hit labor markets, and shifted consumer behavior. Inequality has increased while remote work, digital payments, and changes in travel patterns have endured. Though the immediate shock has passed, COVID-19's legacy continues to reshape global economies and markets. After countries borrowed money to protect welfare and livelihoods, global government debt has risen by 12 percentage points since 2020, with steeper increases seen in emerging markets. Let's have a look at the economic indicators. Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning throughout the broadcast. Here are some of the highlights from the show. Congo ex-President Kabila's allies to be questioned by military prosecutor. U.S. open to minerals partnerships with the Democratic Republic of Congo. Ugandan authorities concerned as malaria season starts. Athol Fugard, death of a great South African playwright. 10 years without answers since journalist and activist Itai Dzamara's enforced disappearance in Zimbabwe. And COVID-19 shut us down 5 years ago. We spoke about how its economic impact continues. DSTV 285, GOTV 25, oneup2.com, and Network Media Hub is precisely where you can find us. Tomorrow, we zone in on Botswana. My name is Ashwin Betty from me and the Africa Good Morning team. Sweda Zvakanaka.